Hello everybody, I'm trying out a new video format today because I'm still annoyed about how I screwed up my footage for my match with GaryofPgh2. Um, it's screwed up because I'm an idiot with my OBS settings. So I thought I'd try something like this to ease my troubled mind and also because it might be an interesting and helpful video format, maybe? I don't know, stranger things have happened in the past, right? I'm gonna do this in one take because rendering videos takes too long. Um, Hopefully, okay, let's press the button. Oh, spoilers! Importer Marchland Money is what I'd call the first game because that's what I did. I opened double importer because that is some high rolls, right? Unfortunately, I got the low roll where I rolled both my importers into the same hand. They collided. And then I had another bad shuffle because I love complaining about these. I'm sure everyone loves hearing me complain about it, but I threw two crossroads into the deck, and then they both they both were the bottom two cards of one of my shuffles, and at that point, like some switch inside of me just snapped, and I thought, okay, you know what? All my importer gains are going to be marchlands now. I went and bought a gold one turn even. I think I imported a marchland, so that discarded my hand, but how? Oh, I must have had one more card because of save. So I could discard my hand for 6 coin, and then buy gold because that's the thing you can do, right? Yeah, so then I hammered marchlands and evidently I won the split. That's pretty great, right? Because that gives me a pretty high point ceiling. Of course, Wild Hunt and Conquest are around, but those aren't the strongest alt VP sources for the engine. Um, I feel like the engine might have been able to do might have been able to do a bit better here had my opponent trashed down a bit more. Maybe he didn't find the right opportunities. Maybe Treasurer bottom decked or something. It's hard to say without the footage, of course, which is lost to the annals of time. And of course, more than one dungeon would definitely be nice because then you'd be able to line up your crossroads. I do think the wild hunts, besides the points angle, I feel like they're kind of dubious because you need to collide crossroads and wild hunt for stuff to happen. Meanwhile, with crossroads, you just need to collide crossroads with green cards, which are a bit more plentiful in your deck, maybe, especially later on in the game. A save helps crossroads. It also helps the person playing Legionary because rather than making your opponent discard a billion cards, you're making your opponent discard a billion plus one cards. So yeah, that was kind of painful, but frankly less painful than it could have been because my greatest aspirations on most of my turns was either play Importer or buy an estate, sometimes a duchy even, because I took the key with Treasurer and he never took it back. There must not have been a good opportunity. So some turns I was just able to afford duchy and a couple, and because his deck was pretty inconsistent, he didn't always get that Legionary attack up. So I did luck out at least one turn where I had crossroads and some green in hand and was able to like do something. That something was probably by Duchy Estate, to be quite frank. No provinces in this deck, baby. Yeah, so anyways, I spent most of this game thinking that I was gonna lose, but I didn't. So, stranger things have happened in the past, right? What else do I have in my notes? Yes, so the point ceiling I had through winning the Marshland split was sufficient. This was kind of a dumb game to start the set off, indeed. It did show the value in not resigning early, which is something I've done like a couple times in the past. Because I totally thought I was going to lose this one, but then I didn't. Huzzah! And I think that's all my notes say here, because I have notes that I printed out because I forgot that because I forgot that I won't be able to like have a text edit. Well, this is a Windows laptop, so Notepad Plus, or never mind. I'm going to stop tangenting here and move on to the next slide. Broker, I hardly know her. Yeah, so I saw this board and thought, I think the best thing to do here is to gain golds off gold mine and then broker them. But that turned out to be a bit easier said than done, especially because gold mine gives you all that depth. Though it can be coin positive if you broke that gold or crucible or salvage. That we got 3 different Treasure benefit cards, and they all actually saw play, even though salvagers and crucibles aren't in our decks anymore by the end because they got broked. They got broked. I wonder if it hurts. Not something to think about. I had 2 more grooms too, but I had to save a couple turns by broking them. I feel like playing with the townsfolk here was a good move, especially because my opponent did have some turns. I also had a Legionary. It got broked as well. My opponent did have some turns where he was able to decrease his hand size before playing blacksmith, and he did the fancy blacksmith stuff. That was pretty good. And the elders were a coin. Um, that being said, so is gold. He never picked up a gold mine, which I think is a mistake because it's a non-terminal source of plus buy. He would have won actually if he had plus buy on his last turn. He actually could have gained that plus buy because he played a groom, but then he gained something else. I forget what it was. Maybe one of the townsfolk. This is something superfluous that didn't say plus buy on it. So he just had one buy. I think there were two provs left, and he could have won off taking both of them. Was that what happened? Hard to say. But he didn't, and I was able to come back. Royal Blacksmith was quite good here. It's a card that you gloss over because it costs 8 debt for an effect that ain't very good until you get rid of all your coppers. And by the time you got rid of all your coppers, you don't need that much draw. So, of course, this is board dependent. On this board, having at least one Royal Blacksmith, 2 would have probably been taking off too many turns for the debt. Was quite good. Also, coin is quite a good village, frankly. I feel like I overlook it a bit too much. It really ain't bad. I think I took too many. I didn't end up using them all, I think, by the end. But there were lots of turns that were saved because I go and broke a 4 cost. I had a Miller in deck before. It's not there anymore. Because I go and broke something, then I call coin, then I keep on going, eh? I did get to do the broken gold thing a couple times. I also crucibled a gold. I don't think I ever salvaged one, so I didn't hit everything. And then pendant turned out to be pretty good payload here, especially when I still had a crucible. And oh yeah, and coin can trigger gives pendant an extra coin too. I think playing with the gold mine thing is proper. I feel like if Gary and I joined forces, we could have made the perfect deck. But one of us went heavier on brokers, one of us went heavier on the townsfolk. I feel like you want the townsfolk to help support the broker stuff a bit more. Or maybe I'm just like spouting buzzwords like support and Scrivener and so on. Let's see. Yeah, Gary clued me into the fact that Royal Blacksmith ain't so bad here. I think I underestimate Coin of the Realm. I had Legionary at some point. That was pretty good. He would have won. Elder gives 2 coin, but you know what else gives 2 coin? Oh yeah, these are some awesome. But you know what else gives 2 coin? Gaining a gold off gold mine and then brokering or crucibling it that same turn. So much simpler, right? Yeah. That's about the gist of this board. We were pretty equal, but he got ahead on scoring sooner, and would have won if he had the extra plus buy. Meanwhile, my deck eventually came online after broking everyone, and was able to eke out the win. Next one. This one was so bad. This one was terrible. You know what the only way to draw on this board is? You got a king's. Okay, so for those who don't have the boons memorized, Field's Gift is a plus action plus coin one, Forest plus coin plus buy one. I completely forgot that was there. And C is plus card. So if you want to draw cards here, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe there's some other way you can draw cards, but like everything here is hand size negative except for King's Court. Except for you got King's Courting 1 Druid is not non-terminal draw. Non-terminal draw is what I'm really talking about here. You can King's Court a Druid. You can play 2 of it as C's Gift. That way you go equal on King's Court plus Druid, and then you play Field's Gift. Congratulations, that's a 9-cost Peddler. That costs even more than like base Peddler, right? Well, never mind. I'm not going to get into the details of that. But so that's not draw. But but if you King's Court 2 Druids, you can play the first one for 3 cards, play the second one for 2 cards plus an action, so non-terminal, and so you spend 4 cards to draw 5 cards. That's awesome. How do you line this up? Warehouse is only -1 hand size, so if you're crazy lucky, you can do that. Oh yeah, oh well, it's pretty obvious by the GIF I put here. I forgot to mention, yeah, indeed there's no trashing, which is why lining this up is so infeasible. I'm not sure if my opponent did a couple times. Maybe he did, because he did cram his deck full of Druids and Oases. I feel like that was incorrect, though. I feel like he would have just been better off cramming his deck full of more bridges. I think it was a while before he got his second bridge, in fact, so that he could just maximize the chance he gets the King's Court bridge. King's Court, I felt during this game that if you King's Court 2 bridges, you win. I thought that was like a win condition. If my math ain't wrong, that still leaves 2 provinces in the pile, so maybe it's basically a win because the board is so weak that for the other player to get all the duchies, I'm not doing the math to be frank. That's, pretty hard to outscore is what I'm saying. And then you just need to eke out the last 2 provs. And he might have been able to line that up because he actually rolled figurehead as his first loot, which is crazy good, I think, on this board. No, maybe not as good as some other stuff. Like, frankly, doubloons wouldn't have been that bad because, as per the title, I think money would have won this board. Just click looting a bunch of times. Maybe the guy with a bunch of King's Courts and bridges hits his high roll, but also maybe he doesn't. And also, if he does hit the high roll, he does have all these provinces in deck now, so maybe it's harder for him to keep up on duchies, maybe outscore. Once again, I'm not doing the math, but I just feel like this board would have felt less painful to play if I just clicked on looting a whole bunch. Oh man, and to continue on the theme of complaining about bottom decks, I had a turn where I would have been able to forward King's Court if my gold was anything but the bottom card of my deck, and it was the bottom card of my deck. That's what I get for buying gold. I should have bought looting instead. I would have gotten jewels, which puts itself at the bottom of your deck. Is there anything else here? No draw besides figurehead. Well, except for the King's Court, King's Court, King's Court, King's Court, 2 druids, baby. And I frankly, skipping bridge may have been the way to go here. Because while it's a silver equivalent, it's not a silver equivalent for the purpose of buying looting, and I think there's enough possible benefit off of buying looting, such as prize goat, which neither of us got, to justify clicking it. Yeah. So this one was kind of nonsense. Should have just played money. Oh, also, of course, I don't agree with these universities at all. I guess the benefit of university is that if you get 2 bridge plays before it. My opponent only had 1 bridge in deck, though. He'd have to King's Court the bridge and still have actions afterwards. Then he'd be able to gain King's Courts off them. But besides that, the targets aren't that good. I mean, the more druids you have, right? But then, and besides that, these universities are hand size negative, which is even worse on this board. Oh, I have all those guardians, by the way, because I wanted to try to spike King's Court. It worked once or twice, maybe. We also both picked up a couple changelings throughout the course of this game because if you get lucky, that's another way to hit King's Court. So, moral of the story is always play money when looting's on the board, I think. Bordered treasure, that's what I call this one because I'm super clever and I love wordplay. Oh my goodness, my decision time is really high this match. That's because my game was lagging a lot. I'm on a bad setup. What can you do? Thankfully, the P in Gary of PGH stands for patience. Thank you, Gary. Wait, which one am I looking at? Oh yeah, this border treasure one. So we both opened asceticism maroon on this one. I think that's the correct open. That's got to be the correct open, in my opinion. IMO. He found his maroon turn 3. I found mine turn 2, which I think is quite worse than finding a turn 3. So that put me behind a bit. Though evidently not so behind that I'd lose the buried treasure split, so I guess it didn't put me that behind. Yeah, so we spent like most of the game buying border villages to gain buried treasures, then spending those buried treasure coin on more border villages for more buried treasures. Evidently, once the buried treasures were gone, he picked up a carpenter. I thought to myself, does that sound good? Yeah, that sounds good. I'm gonna pick up a carpenter. I picked up a second one too at some point, and evidently I carpentered my maroon into a marchland, which I don't think was that good here. Which I don't think was that good here. I don't like my royal blacksmith, but I think the tide pools was okay, and the lighthouse is like fine. Oh, I don't agree with that herbalist by Gary as well. I don't think that's very good, to be frank. I'm not sure why he picked that up. Oh, maybe did he ever use the effect? The footage is gone now, but did he ever top deck a buried treasure with the herbalist? That's not too bad in these decks, because buried treasure is your payload. It's not particularly good payload, by the way, given that it's on average 1.5 coin, but because it's slapped onto 1 turn rather than 2, you can spike price points. Yeah, but my Royal Blacksmith is pretty bad. Because what am I drawing to? 1.5 coin and some coppers. Of course, I'm also drawing to some carpenters, which can carpenter border villages, and that was what we were doing in the end game. We were carpentering border villages into provinces. So I picked up a second one, I guess. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so another thing I was thinking about with the Royal Blacksmith was that maybe it could pay for itself if I gain a marchland and discard the coins that drew me, the cards that drew me. But that wasn't. Once again, I forget if I did that. And even if I did do that, that's not that good still. So don't agree with the Blacksmith here. I think Tide Pools was decent though, just because these decks kind of suck. An ideal deck would perhaps play all its Tide Pools and Buried Treasures on one turn, then take the next turn off. Maybe the next 2 turns off, depending on how many more cards you have to draw to before you can draw to your Tide Pools again. But maybe that would have been nice in an ideal world, of course. Of course, carpentering border villages does deplete the provinces pretty quick, and I lost this one maybe due to other reasons. Turn 3 Maroon. Well, I screwed up the endgame on this one, though, undoubtedly, by thinking, oh, well, there's no way he's going to gain province and duchy, because I took 2 provinces, leaving 1 province in the pile, while he would have been able to outscore with province duchy. I kind of like blanked on the fact that he just needs to Clyde Carpenter Border Village because he had a couple buried treasures in play, which would have bought him a duchy, and he would have win. And that's indeed exactly what happened. So a womp womp. Oh yeah, we had blacksmiths too, so those were a bit of draw, but not that much. And I think we rotated off them at some point for some reason. When I think taking a couple more blacksmiths may have been nice. This one was kind of silly. I misplayed the end game. Buried Treasure's a kind of funny card because you buy it a whole bunch and then you realize it's not. It hasn't put that much coin into your deck. Okay, Warving it up is what I call this one because I bought a bunch of Warves. I geared my opening towards buying Warv, except I didn't buy Gear because Gear's not on this board. I bought Quarry. I think I might have skipped on the silver that Lucky Coin would have given me. No. I mean, I skipped on buying an extra silver just because Lucky Coin gave me one. I'm not 100% sure whether or not I did that. The idea with doing that, of course, is that then I'm going to get to the end of the shuffle slightly quicker and see the wharf that I buy during it sooner. My opponent opened Moneylender. I didn't like that because I didn't want to draw dead with wharf, and I keep on forgetting that Toil can help you resolve that kind of thing. However, toiling a Moneylender really ain't that good because it's coin neutral. You get net 0 coins out of that, but it also costs you 2 cards from your hand. So it's a bit of a hand size attack, so to speak. Nah, that's kind of a dumb way to put it. But of course, Moneylender trashes the copper -1 coin, toiling at -2 coins, but then the Moneylender gives you 3 coins back, so you're back to 0. But you had to draw that Moneylender and that copper, so. But evidently I did realize partway through, oh yeah, I can just toil Moneylenders. So I picked some up after I'd picked up a couple wars. Maybe that's the better build order. I picked 2 up. I think that's incorrect. I think I should have just picked up 1. 2 seemed a bit overkill. They were a bit of a liability later on. Actually, once Rapid Expansion activated, I did have the actions to play them without toiling them. So I was getting, like, what? The Terminal Silver effect, basically. Yeah, one Rapid Expand. My opponent. Sorry, I keep on saying my speaking skills ain't the best these days. My opponent picked up Tea House sooner than I did because I figured, well, if I'm gonna buy a 5, it's gonna be Wharf because you get this. You can also toil Wharf. So I filled my deck full of Wharves. I didn't end up winning the split, alas. My opponent went for Tea Houses sooner. Once I noticed a Rapid Expansion was gonna activate, I made sure to pick up a Tea House of my own. I think he had 1 Tea House in deck. Meanwhile, I had none at the time until I noticed that the thing was at 2. So I picked one up so that he would play his Tea House, put it to 1, and then I'd be able to activate Rapid Expansion and benefit first off it. I think that's what happened. I'm just going off of how it sounds in the audio recording because I don't fully remember, but I think I wound up properly pulling that off, and he didn't like hold his tea house to make sure I didn't do it or something. Um, there's a kind of weird play. I'm not sure if he had the opportunity, but if one of us really wanted to activate rapid expansion and we were already in the buy phase and everything, one could buy a tea house, toil a wharf, or toil something to draw the tea house up, and then toil the tea house, and then carry on. But that is pretty expensive. No, though I guess quarry makes it less expensive. Yeah, picking up a second quarry was quite good by the time rapid expansion activated. I unfortunately was a turn late to it. My second quarry I bought on the turn rapid expansion activated, so I didn't get to benefit from the cheap actions, from the basically free actions that quick. But yeah, because rapid expansion gives you quite a nice benefit for buying a whole bunch of actions, so long as you don't leave a pile out. So making those actions cheap means you can do that while also scoring, which is indeed what happened. I wound up basically pinning Gary in the end game, in that there really was no winning line for him, and I had like 3 tea houses, and the silver I gained off Lucky Coin, plus a bunch of wharves in play to basically guarantee the last 2 provinces. So wasn't much that he could do there. Once again, I'm going to lament the fact that that the footage is shot, so we can't really see what he might have been able to do differently or what I might have done. Another point is I was able to snipe the defiled shrine points for quite a lot. I got something like 7 tokens off it, more maybe. Maybe part of that was luck, but also part of that might have been that I went for the wharves sooner, so maybe I had that extra buy. So I was more likely to get that extra buy. And evidently I picked up another batch of default shrine points, which weren't as much, but I think they were about as much as a duchy, so I figured, I may as well go and do the stylish thing and buy a duchy. I mean, buy a zero-cost duchy, right? Yeah, I don't got that much to say about this one no more. But noticing when the prophecy is going to trigger can be quite useful, especially if it's one that you want to be the one to trigger, and you don't have a tea house yet. Well, you pick one up and hope that your opponent doesn't try to do anything fancy by not playing his and so on. And he didn't do that. The final one, this one was super dumb because there was no trashing. We both opened Envoy Silver, geared towards hitting 5 for a cursor next shuffle. I wound up actually hitting 6 for an artisan, which was pretty awesome because obviously that can gain me one of the 5-cost cursors. I chose Charlatan, and I think that's correct. I don't think the Trickster from Gary was good at all, really, because not only is the treasure carryover ability really not that good in general, unless barring cases like, I don't know, you want to have a plunder in your hand for your encampments every turn. But with these decks as crappy as they are, just having a terminal gold is really nice, because if you find the terminal gold, you're most likely hitting a number, right? You're most likely hitting a relevant number. Meanwhile, Trickster doesn't do that. So I wound up winning the curse split 7-3, which is very good, basically game deciding. Actually, completely game deciding, I think. So, alas. But besides that, I wound up thinking this board's pretty interesting, at least for the player who doesn't have 7 curses in his deck, because you can't trash, you gotta rely on like Cartographer to help line up your heralds, which was pretty fun. I could do stuff like, let's see, I wrote it down. Let's see. Where the deck you end up playing here wound up being rather interesting, I write. At least for the guy with less than 7 curses in deck, I write. Cartographer is great for lining up heralds, and it's fun to set things up so that, say, your herald draws an action that you want to throne, and then it hits the throne, so you get to throne the action, and so on. Revealing at least 2 action cards with Cartographer, such that you can throne a herald and it'll hit twice is quite fun. I think that might have happened once or twice. So that was nice. This was also the most I've ever used Herald Overpay in any game, because these decks sucked so bad that being able to basically guarantee that your next turn does something at least was quite good. I I would top deck I would sorry, I would top deck Cartographer, Herald, and then if I still had more coin, like Throne Room, I think a couple times I had lots of coin and I guess not very many buys, so I put multiple Heralds on top and so on, so that your next turn has so that your next turn ain't 5 coppers, right? 5 coppers or 5 curses, take your pick. So that was kind of cool. The Herald overpay coming into play. My opponent picked up the Emissary. I think it was on a turn when he might have been able to trigger it for its non-terminal play effect. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do so. I think I guess he just didn't have the right stuff to get to the end of the deck. He picked up Grand Market at some point too, which may have been fine. It does mean that he wasn't playing a couple coppers, but I don't think it was that many coppers. So I think it might have actually been exactly like 3 coppers. And what are you buying on 3 coppers? Nothing actually, because I don't think he had that much plus buy. He was pretty late to picking up plus buy, though I guess he wasn't hitting price points where it would be useful anyway. So, and the other thing is that I scored a bit earlier than I really needed to this game. I just kind of wanted the peace of mind that that Gary wasn't going to pile out on me and take a prov, which would have won if I didn't take a prov sooner. It was not the optimal play, but just having that extra points buffer in a game you're favored to win can give you the peace of mind to not make, some stupid mistake, I think. Of course, it could end up being the single province that completely ruins a critical turn, but with decks like this, I don't think turns didn't really reach the point where you could call them critical. Oh, well, maybe some of the early turns where I, thrown to Charlatan or something were critical. I think that happened, which helped me win the curse split, obviously. Anyways, this one was really just win the curse split. I think Gary chose the wrong cursor. Cursor? Like this cursor? So that was not a good move on his part, but I did get lucky off of finding 6 for an artisan off my Envoy Silver open. And then the Herald stuff was kind of fun. Thanks for watching. That's all. Let's see. If you think this video format is interesting, maybe leave a comment saying so, and maybe I'll do more like this. If you don't like this video format, then maybe don't leave a comment or it will break my fragile heart. Wow, who writes this stuff? Okay.